Welcome to Scrappy ABM. This is your podcast with practical playbooks that don't break the bank. This is your host, Mace Cosby, and today I'm joined by Amanda Oles, who is the Director of Revenue Marketing over at Stensul. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm stoked for a variety of reasons, but namely, I want to give a quick shout out for the soon-to-be Oles baby that will be here in ideally the next 24 hours. And thank
Literally.
you for even doing a podcast while you are literally any moment. So we're going to make this a relatively quicker interview that way. You know, you can go to the, go have a kid. So Amanda, for everyone that doesn't know, really quick, what is Stensul? What do you guys do? And then let's dig into how you guys target.
Cool. Yeah. So Stensul is in kind of the governance space now, really. It's the governance layer on top of your email and landing page creation process. So think especially pertinent in this period of time with all the AI generated content and assets that are occurring. It's how do we kind of lock that down and make that safe so that the stuff, the content that AI is generating is actually shippable, right? Because we're creating a lot of stuff right now, we're creating a lot of content, but that's not what actually gets into your customer inbox, into your prospect inbox. So Stensul creates that governance layer, has guardrails for brand guidelines, for compliance guidelines, all the things that really matter, and kind of super specific user permissions and roles that allow kind of that collaboration and democratization of who can create those assets while still keeping them safe, keeping them locked in. So highly regulated industries are really our bread and butter, where that's like extra important.
Love it. So that perfectly ties into, one of the core things when we think about building any ABM program are the actual accounts in the ABM program. And there's so many different ways that people go about targeting. So I'm curious, when you think about building out that target account list, how do you actually determine the right companies to even focus in on?
Yeah. So I think there's two paths here, and it's super dependent on the scope, the resources you have at your fingertip, the size of your team. There's kind of two approaches. So if this is your sole focus, you are focused on ABM, you like that is your whole role, then you can really take that fully structured approach where you're looking at, starting with your ICP and not just like what you think your ICP is, but making sure that this is a data backed like alignment with in collaboration with your sales partners. Sales and marketing need to be like best friends to create this target list of accounts. Now, marketing can come to the table with suggestions, and you should, right? Those should be, again, data-backed suggestions. Like I think of how I approach it is I have an understanding of our ICP already, and I also have an understanding of accounts that are exhibiting signals through the different platforms and tools that we use and who have engaged with our marketing programs over time. So I can come to the table with suggestions, but it's really about getting that alignment with sales on like exactly who we want to target. And when I talk about signals, I don't just mean like philosophical intent at like the account level. I mean like getting into a room with your sales team and really understanding like what makes people take a phone call and what makes people continue in the sales process. You can do that qualitatively. You can also use AI and like analyze Gong calls and really get deep into the data and understand like, okay, let's analyze the past 100 Gong calls of opportunities that got to XYZ stage and really understand and group like, okay, here are the trends and the themes I'm seeing of accounts that got that far in the sales stage. That's how you start to create your signals, and then or identify your signals, I should say. And then you can create them with, whatever platforms you're using, working with your operations, rev ops, marketing ops team to like get that into reality. So that's kind of like the broader approach of like the full structure, ICP, one to few, one to many, one to one, you've got the whole thing. I'll take that a step back though and also answer like, if you are limited on resources, small team, you also have a lot of other responsibilities. Maybe the company is like treating ABM as like a tactic, right? And you have to really think about that. Like, then I would recommend starting with two programs, maybe even one, but two programs: pipeline acceleration and close lost. It's like very, very clear what your target list is. You're not worrying about signals and orchestration and ICP in that sense. You're saying, here are the opportunities that are supposed to close by this date, and I'm going to help accelerate them. And that's my target list. or here are the group of opportunities that have been closed lost. They reached a certain threshold in our sales cycle, so we know they're qualified. We know they already get what we do. There's this level of understanding. I'm going to go after them and treat them very specially. So two playbooks, in my opinion, depending on your resourcing, your team size, and all of that.
I love the second answer. We actually have started to push all of our clients to start when they build a program with us with either closed lost, pipeline acceleration, customer win backs,
Yeah,
or if you have like an event program that's coming up, then you can try to convert out of events because they're
oh
higher
yeah,
intent. But like the number one that we almost always start with is closed lost because it is such a good starting point to just validate how you're going to progress an account from not in a sales call to in a sales call.
yeah. Yeah, they have a level of understanding already. I think a lot Stensul is kind of in a category creation mode. And if you're in that boat, you're doing a lot of kind of education, and the sales team is doing a lot of outbounding and cold prospecting, right? So by starting with close lost for your approach, you've nixed that part. They get it. They've gone through it. They know what you do. They've likely seen a demo, all of that good stuff. And you can get to the progression and like really adding value.
I love it. Okay, so once we've got that target account list, I'm curious how you then think through actually getting in front of them. Like, it's great. We've got this beautiful list. And I often say to people, there are sometimes lists that you build that are only accessible through carrier pigeon, and they may not even be the best people to target. So how do we make sure that we're going after people that we can actually reach?
Yeah. So a couple things. Obviously, like database integrity is always up for debate at any company. Sales feels like the CRM isn't good enough. We're trying to add to CRM, make it better from a marketing standpoint. But I think like in terms of who we're trying to target, again, it's close collaboration with sales. If they're not in Salesforce, that's a problem. We need to get them into Salesforce. But at minimum, you get with your sales partners and you figure out who are the contacts that you are going after for this list of accounts, and getting that into Salesforce first and foremost, tagged in the appropriate way so you can operationalize it and scale out your motions. And then it's about, what channels do we use to engage these people? For Stensul, from my perspective, like we're an enterprise SaaS company. So we're going after large, highly regulated enterprises. That turns into very long sales cycles. And so every channel matters, to be frank. It really takes like all touch points to influence a deal, right? Our most influential combo is typically like trade show plus email plus paid social. Those three things are kind of like what we see time and time again as the biggest influencers into our pipeline. And I think it's like the best case combination, right? Because it's like you're meeting these people in person via trade show. That could be conference, that could be event, whatever you want to call it. So you're getting that personalized, like in-person experience, but then you're meeting them where they are afterwards digitally via email, via paid media, and kind of nurturing them that way. So I think like ultimately the best way to get in front of your target audience is like that curated and in-person motion, but that's not always possible. Like that kind of comes with time, in my opinion, right? Like if you have created a community and you've got a great engagement, like that is just the best way to get in front of these people, but that takes some time, right? Like you don't just have a community of people that want to show up to your stuff time and time again. And we're really just scratching the surface on that here at Stensul, but that is a big goal of ours, is like, how do we become the place where like governance is talked about, and be the place where people want to show up time and time again. We've been doing some cool regional events and kind of scratching the surface there, but yeah, I think like in person is where it's at, but you have to be everywhere for long sales cycles and enterprise deal sizes.
Yeah, I've found that in person works extraordinarily well when they already know you exist. So I use digital for existence. I use in person for acceleration. They're like,
Yes.
I think I've heard of you. And you're like, yeah. And then you go into it and they're like, oh, I think we might need your help. Amazing. Let's go. But if you just do the in person, then the challenge on that is like you meet them year one and then you don't have really any touch points until year two. And they're like, oh, yeah, we met last year. And then you have to wait until year three to actually convert. And I've
Yes.
seen that with my own life. And I'm like, this is awful. Like we just booked meeting with someone that I've met at the same conference every year for the past 4 years. It's
Yeah.
so we just, yeah, like that's why the two work together so well.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. We also we target like existing customer relationships, right? Or like maybe expansion motions and then
Yeah.
pipeline acceleration to that in-person approach. Yeah.
So again, channels are always helpful because otherwise you can't get in front of people, but channels are only as effective as the actual place in which you're sending people. So as you think through the actual content that's required to get an account to engage and then actually move into a sales call, what kind of content are you guys using that, again, raises awareness, gets them to understand their problems, and then inevitably want to talk to sales?
Yeah. I was thinking about this actually. I think, well, I'll start with this. I think like if you have the bandwidth, like one-to-one personalized content like does land, but it is resource heavy. But if I think this is especially important when you think about like an expansion motion, because the content is so rich. You typically have like your current buying center that already uses your platform. You have a success story, you have metrics, you have all these things that can be curated into content to spread amongst the org. And like that is just gold. And I think like a custom landing page or pieces of content that are all about their organization, their use case, their wins, their success story, that can then be used as a one-stop shop, almost like an intranet to like Stensul plus X logo. And we're even like toying with coordinating like on-site lunch and learns and like personalized webinars that are just for the logo. That tactic also lets you kind of skirt around the like, you can't use our logo for things, because it's all internal and it's for their organization. And so that opens up a lot of, in a highly regulated space, you can imagine like we're very limited in what we can share. And so that opens up a lot of green space in terms of like, oh, we can actually talk about this because we're just talking about it to this other counterpart. So personalized like content written specifically for the account is key. And I think it just adds so much value to the people consuming it. Now it's definitely still important to figure out like what channels you're using to get that out there. Do you have an internal champion that's also going to share the resource? They're going to get more eyes on it than you as a brand trying to blast it out. So that's part of that too. And then I think like the other thing I was going to say is events, like go back to events, like that's content, right? That's like digitally, that's a little more scalable, but still one-to-one being king. Events like need to have a pull and need to offer value that's not just about your brand, not just about your logo. We used to do a really fun thing. It was more in COVID times when everything was really still digital and people weren't able to get in person a lot, but we had these virtual wine tastings that were like a really elevated experience with a sommelier. And sometimes they were from a winery, or sometimes they were from like a store that had multiple brands, like whatever it was. And just, we sent them this like branded gift box beforehand. They got 3 full bottles of wine to go with the tasting. And it was just such an elevated experience. And it created value and interest aside from Stensul, because the experience itself was like networking and meeting other people and having this cool moment. And we've been trying to kind of like experiment with that in some of our regional dinners, like adding a wine tasting component or adding some type of component that's like, this is also just a fun event, like, for better or worse. And then, tying in Stensul after the fact. So that's kind of something too, is like, how can you add value that's like not just about your brand?
I used to run dinners for a former company, and what we would always do, because we did a different dinner in a different city every single month, and the play was very simple. Actually, just invite really great people, a mix of customers and prospects and in pipeline and close lost. But you focus on like, these are the people who are going to be here. And then you make a 2-minute pitch, which is like, hey, and like we had owners in the room. So they were like, hey, I got to make sure this is a tax write off and not just me hanging out with my friends. It's like you make a
Yeah.
couple jokes and then like make a 2-minute pitch. And from there, if you hang out for 2 hours, you get 2 minutes. Like and everybody understands that.
Yeah.
And if someone's interested, great. They can like raise their hand, but we've always done, hey, here's a QR code to just like go get some more information. If you want to talk to us about it, fantastic. If you just want to hang out and network, we love that too. And that's why we're here. So
Yeah.
just the simple framing there I have found works extraordinarily well for in-person dinners. And we were able to consistently convert between 10 and 20% of the room every time with
Yeah.
a 2-minute pitch because it respected their time and they felt respected versus like a bait and switch of like a 45-minute pitch. And you're like, I just came
There's
to
a
hang
slide
out.
deck. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, this is not what we were here. So again, the respect of the room, I think, is what makes these dinners so effective.
Yeah. And what's cool is like we actually started, we were so cautious of that we were leaning away from like any brand specific messaging at a couple of these events, and then got feedback like if like partners or other people were able to bring like net new folks into the room being like, wait,
Yeah.
like what does Stensul do? And then you're like, oh, like we're adding so much value that now they're actually interested. And so we added that back in of like, because we had like eliminated it completely because we were so conscious and aware of just trying to be more of like the networking like space to meet versus like anything Stensul related. But bringing back like that 2-minute pitch to your point is like, you still want the context. They're like, wait, why are we here? And how do I connect with these other people in the room? Like, what's that tying factor? And so, yeah, I totally agree. And I also think a key thing for those types of events is like, if you can get an anchor customer or two already on the list, already like, even if you can just say like, oh, this logo is going to be there. That's really key and a big like tactic and helpful way to get more butts in seats because people want to connect with other people in their space. Maybe it's a vertical specific or just like title, like level specific, but that's really helpful too.
On that front, how do you promote who's there? Because I've seen this done in a couple different ways. And I'm curious how you approach that.
I've done it a couple ways, depending on the level of allowance from the organization. Sometimes we've like featured them on the sign up page, like headshot and everything. And that was really cool when they were open to it. Other times it's more of that like one-to-one approach through the salesperson inviting and being like, I own this book of business and it's very similar to these logos that are coming. So I'm going to reference that they're going to be there. One of the key things is like getting that anchor customer there can then help kind of curate who you even go after. It's like, oh, if we have a financial service company or we have a tech company, like let's go after that and like make it relevant to other people because they want to mingle with their peers and learn from their peers. So that's kind of the two ways we've done it. It's either can we put it on the registration page full on, or do we just have to be a little more light in the one-to-one outreach from sales?
I really love the putting it on the landing page and then actually framing that person up as the host, because then they get to feel special too. And then the other thing I've just seen is literally people, they're like, hey, here's what we've got so far. And it's like a screenshot of an Excel spreadsheet. And I think like
that's cool.
because it makes it feel organic and like not like it's like, hey, here are the people that are hanging out. Like, I'd love to see you there too. So that approach I've seen work also really well, because it's one is like, if you're going to go curated, like make it actually curated and polished. If you're going to not make it curated, like make it scrappy and like here's a screenshot of a spreadsheet and like, anyway.
And
you
so
just got to pick your lane.
AI, right? It's like, you're going to be in the room with the blah, blah, blah. No, like here's literally the screenshot of where we're tracking who said yes. That's cool. I like that. I might try it.
All right. Love it. So last couple questions would just be around measurement. Again, I got to drop some quick stats because of the podcast, but there was a recent study that came out that was shown at Gartner by Influ2 that just specifically outlined that when ABMers were surveyed on what they were measuring success on, 46% of them were focused on engagement and like webinar registrations as the primary metric for success. And there was no other metric that was above 40% as the primary metric for success for the ABM program, which to me blew my mind, because every ABMer goes, it's like, what are we doing? So every ABMer goes to sales and was like, if you work with me, you'll make more money, which is a revenue metric. But apparently half of us at worst aren't even measuring revenue. So as you think about how to measure success, like what are the core leading indicators that you lean into to say like, all right, we've got momentum? Because obviously, like, especially in enterprise, pipeline and revenue take a second. So how do you show that you've got the earlier momentum? And then also, how do you tying that back into revenue eventually?
Yeah. So that's a shocking answer to me too, because my immediate thing when I was looking over some of these questions is like pipeline and revenue, boom, period. Like that's what it, but to your point, long sales cycles, we need leading indicators. We need something to help us understand, like, are we creating activations within these accounts that are eventually going to move us forward into pipeline? So we have at Stensul, we have a pretty robust account lifecycle, and we've built that inside our own systems and defined the different stages through work between myself, RevOps, marketing ops, and sales to really understand, like, what are the kind of like stages of accounts that we want to track over time. And we have something called like a Stensul qualified account, but really that's just showing like the level of engagement of the contacts. So again, like there's been this big shift. It was like account based everything, and then we're really trying to get more into like, well, accounts don't buy, people buy, and I'm down with that. I think it needs both. Like you need to understand the account stage, but that account stage is often driven by the contact engagement and the contact stages. So we also have a contact life cycle that's driven primarily through Marketo and also defined internally, but we use external sources to help make those definitions. So that way you're not completely dependent on an outside platform, but you are able to use those inputs in your own kind of like model. That would be my recommendation, is like, don't go all in on just a platform's version of an account score, because then you're married to that, and things could change. And if you ever are not a customer of that platform anymore, then where does your account score go? So definitely recommend having your own account score that's fueled by varying data sources so that you can keep that kind of internal knowledge base and model. But yeah, so like Stensul qualified accounts is kind of like our leading indicator. Like we want to see, we would expect and assume that accounts that hit that stage are more likely to convert into an opportunity and into pipeline. So that's kind of like our leading indicator. And then engaged accounts is like the step before that. So maybe in order to become Stensul qualified, there has to be multiple persona matching contacts that are at like an MQL or above scoring threshold. But engaged accounts is even earlier, like, okay, at least there's one or two people signing up for things, or there's engagement metrics on emails, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's that combo of between the account lifecycle and the contact level lifecycle. And one other thing I want to mention, like, it's not just any contact. Like, be very specific about who's engaging. And it goes back to that like account target list and the contact level target list that you worked on with your sales team. Like, are you engaging the buying committee and the target contacts that sales said they want to go after? I think it's really hard to do that. And sometimes with different stakeholders and a lot of things going on, like I haven't always even cracked that, but like, I know that that's best practice, is like, we need to get the right people engaging, not just any people engaging. And so it's really important to have that connection, because I've seen a lot of it happen where, perhaps sales is going after these contacts that we realize are like completely opted out from marketing emails or something like that. And we're engaging this account and it has nothing to do with the people that they're going after. And you're like, like that's, I mean, it happens all the time and it's going to happen, but it's something to be aware of, and just try to like really get into like, are we engaging the right buying committee that the sales team wants us to engage?
Yeah, I think it's such a good call out, because I do think that quite a few folks, when ABM was on the rise, they went all in on the account level. And at the end of the day, the running joke, it's not even a joke that I always say, is like, we've done 300-ish sales cycles in the past 2-ish years. Every single one of those sales cycles had a CFO involved. I've only personally ever spoken to 3,
Right.
which then functionally means most of them have no idea who I am or what we do, unless we do specific marketing programs to engage them outside of a sales context. So just the ability to understand the contacts that are already engaged and involved, what their role is in the buying committee, and then actually personalizing your content based on what they care about. Because again, the average buying committee is now roughly 14 people and varies between 3 to 5 departments. Like, they all have different priorities, and you got to speak to all of those priorities in order to actually get the deal across the line. And that's mid-market. Enterprise, we're seeing strategic sales now are like 50 to 60 people buying committees, because budgets are just getting so tight and people are getting so stringent on what they want to spend. So yeah, I couldn't agree more on the breakdown of not only account but contact level.
Like we just made a specific procurement like one pager and kind of
Super
content
smart.
set because, and before, like up and only till recently, like I didn't even think of, marketing wasn't thinking about procurement at all. And then realizing like that's such a missed opportunity, like for pipeline acceleration in particularly,
Yeah.
they're a big component. And that's actually a big learning was like, that's where our deals stall the longest. So what can we do to help set the team up for success to like try to shorten that time frame because we hadn't even been thinking about it.
Yeah. I love this episode. That was a lot of fun. Amanda, I've got one last question for you, and then
Yes.
we'll let you go have a baby. So,
I know. Hopefully this weekend, all the good vibes.
as you think back to your first ABM program, what's one thing you wish you had known before you got started?
Simple is better. Like I am so guilty of this. I think a lot of people in like demand gen roles, we're go-getters, we're like very structured. We want the whole framework and we want to be like, this is the strategy and this is like, this is what's going to get it. But that can just get so overwhelming and unattainable quick. Especially like I kind of started with team size. So like simple is better. Like start with that pipeline acceleration play, start with the close loss play, like really focus on what you can control and a finite number of accounts and not worry about like the philosophical strategy of ABM and balancing one-to-one versus one-to-few versus one-to-many. Like that can just get all out of hand. You'll spend all this time planning and strategizing and not doing. So
Yeah.
that's my tip. Simple is better.
I love it. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to find out more about you, where would you point them?
LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn /Amanda Oles. So yeah, definitely connect with me. I'd love to build up my network and chat with other like-minded demand gen ABM folks. I'm also in the couple communities for ABM, ForgeX and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm around. Well, we'll see. I'll be busy maybe in the next couple of weeks with a new child.
Yeah, a little busy, but
Busy.
you'll be back. What is it? December, January?
Back onto the work train in December, but I'll probably still be on
You'll be
LinkedIn
around.
and seeing what's up in the industry while I'm on leave.
Love
Yeah.
it. Well, Amanda, again, thanks so much for joining me today. This has been Scrappy ABM. We'll see you guys in the next one.